Chapter 696, Giant Guardian. As the tyrannical aura flew past, high in the sky, Anderson's chewing came to a sudden halt. It was only when the entity was a distance away did he swallow the remaining rabbit meat. He looked up at Jayam Sparrow. "That was the dragon you were talking about." Klein nodded slightly, confirming Anderson's guess. The corners of Anderson's mouth slowly curled up, revealing an expression as though he was at a loss on whether to laugh or cry. "I thought you were talking about a mature or adolescent dragon, the one that just flew past. I probably won't be able to become a dragon hunter, dragon feces perhaps." The tyrannical feeling that the King of the North exudes is indeed a little terrifying. Compared to the pieced-together monster which made hair grow without restraint on the future, it's a lot stronger. Perhaps it's a sequence for, at the level of a demigod. Klein calmly made a judgment, without revealing any hints of panic or horror. He clearly remembered that Grossel's travels had clearly indicated that the female pirate had managed to succeed in escaping from the King of the North's attack, before meeting up with the team led by the main lead, Grossel. And Edwina Edwards clearly wasn't a demigod. She was a sequence 5 of the reader pathway. Furthermore, as she was suddenly swallowed by the book, certain mystical items and sealed artifacts that she didn't permanently keep on her person were left in the captain's cabin. The tools she had that were useful to her were probably limited to 1 or 2. Under such a situation, she was able to defend against the King of the North and survive. Having just advanced, and having adjusted his inventory, Klein believed that it wouldn't faze him too much. Furthermore, he was still connected to the gray fog. He could use the Sea God Scepter to produce a response. This was also why Klein dared to enter directly, after confirming that Danitz was in an ordinary state during his prayer. Yes, the King of the North doesn't seem like a demigod from a normal pathway. According to Vice Admiral Iceberg, it's a rampager who gathers frost-related Beyonder characteristics, and it can match a demigod in certain domains but would have flaws in other aspects. Edwina, Anderson, and me, along with the Beyonders of the main leads team, we wouldn't be helpless. If all else fails, I can still use the Sea God Scepter. I don't believe that this book can defend against items above the gray fog. If it could, it would have shown it long ago. Standing beside the fire, Klein looked down at Anderson and grinned. "Are you afraid?" Anderson was taken aback as he immediately beamed. "Not at all, you seem to be very confident." After saying that, he looked at Danitz, who was still trembling and trying hard to compose himself before tesking. "Do you know what's the most important thing for a man?" Danitz had just taken a deep breath. He was stunned by what he heard as he held his right index finger and middle finger together, pointing to his crotch with uncertainty. Anderson blinked before he roared with laughter. "Bastard, you really are a crude pirate." "Haha, I wanted to say something, but haha, I can't remember it." "Oh right, I wanted to say courage. Courage is the most important thing for a man. Look at you. The dragon hasn't even attacked, and you're almost hugging your head and begging for mercy." Danitz's face instantly flushed red as he glared at Anderson. "You weren't acting like this back at Tosgarder." Klein couldn't help but lampoon. Danitz was just about to make it clear that he was only influenced by the high-level creature when he suddenly recalled what was just said. His expression was immediately restored to normal as he casually replied, "I can't compare with dragon feces at all." Anderson's smile froze as he coughed lightly. As though nothing had happened, he yanked off a rabbit's leg and handed it over to Jayam Sparrow. "Want a bite?" Klein remained silent for a few seconds before he slowly shook his head. This is a strange world. Before confirming that there aren't any problems, it's best not to eat anything here. Perhaps it might be a piece of rabbit meat that will make you stay here forever. Anderson moved the roasted rabbit's leg to his nose before slowly putting it down. Following that, his face collapsed. "Why didn't you say so earlier?" Klein calmly replied, "I just thought of this problem." Anderson's expression turned twisted as he lowered his head. He quickly bit down on his roasted rabbit leg. "Aren't you afraid that something really bad will happen?" The strongest hunter's actions alarmed Danitz. Anderson laughed helplessly. "I've already eaten one earlier. I've already digested it by now. Since there's no way of turning back, I might as well focus on enjoying it." Klein and Danitz were momentarily at a loss for words. After Anderson finished gnawing on the rabbit's leg, he deliberated and asked, "Are you really not eating? We have no idea how much time we'll be spending here. If we really do starve, how are we supposed to fight the dragon?" Klein didn't reply. He took out his golden pocket watch and opened it. "It's 6:10 in the evening outside. We'll eat a little after 4 to 6 hours if nothing happens to you." Anderson turned agape, speechless. Klein ignored him and turned to say to Danitz, 15 minutes break. We'll search for your captain after that." As he said that, he had already taken out the pearl earring belonging to Vice Admiral Iceberg Edwina Edwards. "All right." Danitz suddenly felt pumped with his blood boiling, completely forgetting the cold outside. But after about 8 seconds, he huddled close to the fire again. Around 7 in the evening in the outside world, Klein pressed down on his hat and held his cane. Together with Danitz and Anderson, he followed the revelation provided by his divination and found their way to a mountain. After circling the boulders which were encased in thick layers of ice, they saw a dark mountain cave. Standing by the entrance was a woman holding an ancient bow. The woman had a head of soft, lustrous black hair, which she had simply tied into a pigtail. Her facial features were soft, making her look different from any national of the northern continent. She wore a brown, ancient-styled hunter's coat and trousers. She acutely cast her gaze over. Upon seeing her slightly sharp ears, Klein immediately guessed her identity from matching her to the content in Grossel's travels. She was the female elf who got to know the giant, Grossel, at the very beginning. Her name was unknown. Compared to Earth, people from the northern continent look more Caucasian, but this elf has more of an oriental charm. Klein quickly concluded this particular trait. An elf, she's identical to the elves drawn in the ancient church drawings. Anderson suddenly became excited. "I have to negotiate with her to get her to be my model so that I can draw a few portraits of her." By the side, Danitz scoffed. He mocked in a succinct manner, boorish. Clearly, he hadn't forgotten Anderson's previous mockery. "Do you only know of that kind of drawing?" Anderson shot a glance at him, sped up, and walked towards the female elf. Just as he approached, the female elf didn't hesitate to raise her bow. The arrow strung on it shimmered with silver lightning. "Wait," Anderson immediately raised his hands. "It's useless. The elves mostly belong to the storm pathway. They are prone to being irascible and rash." Klein secretly activated his spirit body threads, planning to achieve initial control over the elf in order to let her listen calmly. At this moment, Anderson saw a blur before seeing 2 thick, huge, muscular grayish-blue legs. Embedded in the snow was a huge, terrifying sword. Anderson was horrified to realize that his height only reached the leg's knees. He instinctively followed the sword and looked up, bit by bit. With his head almost completely facing upwards, he finally saw the giant, who was nearly 4 meters tall. The giant's skin was grayish-blue. His abdomen and waist was covered in a thick, furry beast hide, leaving him naked everywhere else. Even his legs lacked protection. He pounded on the sword, which was wider than a human door, and using his trademark single vertical eye to look at Anderson, Klein, and Danitz, he asked with a booming voice, "Who are you? Why are you here in the Grossel camp?" Klein was just about to reply when a familiar figure suddenly walked out from the dark mountain cave. Danitz's eyes were instantly filled with ecstasy. Dressed in a complicated shirt and dark-colored trousers, Edwina swept her gaze across the trio. Her usually cold expression revealed a rather flabbergasted look, as though she hadn't expected to see Jayaman Sparrow and Anderson Hood here. She quickly composed herself and looked up at the giant. "Grossel, they are my companions." Grossel widened his huge mouth into a grin and asked in delight, "Are you also here to help deal with Ulyssen?" "Ulyssen." Klein was momentarily left at a loss for an answer. At that moment, he saw Edwina, who was standing in the giant's shadow, give him a look. She wanted him to give an affirmative answer. "Ulyssen is the king of the north." Klein replied in thought, "Yes." "Haha, then we are friends." Grossel looked down at the trio and laughed. As he spoke, Anderson silently retreated back to Jayaman Sparrow's side as he said under his breath, "This is the first time I'm meeting a living giant." There's no way of hitting his vital spots, he's just too tall. You can hit his legs. Klein lampooned and calmly replied, a huge target makes it easy to strike them. That's right, Anderson agreed. At that moment, Edwina walked over and introduced the three of them. This is the leader of the camp, Giant Guardian Grosel. This is the elven songster, Cyadas. Elven songster, ocean songster. Klein suddenly felt that there was hope for Mr. Hanged Man's potion formula. Edwina turned halfway around and said to Grosel and Cyadas, they are my companions. The strongest adventurer, Jayaman Sparrow, treasure hunter Anderson Hood, and renowned sailor Danitz. I always thought Vice Admiral Iceberg was the serious type who never lied. Renowned sailor. Ha, in a certain way, that's true. Klein took off his hat and gave a serious bow. Anderson followed suit in a rather casual and perfunctory manner. Reeling in his delight that his captain had introduced him as a companion instead of a subordinate, Danitz was slower than the others as he acted in a fluster. Grosel laughed. Come on in, we will be fighting that evil dragon Ulyssin at any moment now. How warm and amiable, but be it the churches, canon, or the myths of the City of Silver, giants are extremely violent creatures who have a strong desire for destruction. Yes, anything is possible in a book. It all depends on whether the author can make everything flow nicely. Klein nodded slightly as he followed Grosel into the spacious cave. When Edwina saw this, she approached the trio without showing any signs of abnormal behavior. As though she was leading the way, she whispered, the history they speak of is a little odd. Same for their language. Regardless of the language they speak, all of us can understand it.